Hi, I'm Mario Guerra, the two-time former mayor of the great city of Downey. And I'm here with my co-host, the editor of the great Downey Patriot, Eric Pierce. And you're listening to Talking Downey with Mario
and Eric.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. Good episode today.
Yeah, that was a good one on there. Hopefully you guys saw it last week. When you're watching this one, that was last week's episode we just did.
Yeah.
We had to do a clip of the outtakes. Mm-hmm. So we look so smooth, but today was in a two-take presentation.
I don't know how smooth we look. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we do.
Well, I got the names right, you know. And anyways, we do these bloopers. We should do these bloopers, Brandon, sometime. You know, do a blooper
Get
show.
them all together.
Yeah. So, anyways, how are you?
I'm doing really good.
Good. What are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about State Gallery today.
Okay.
Their parent company, State Arts. And, you know, this is like a conversation that we've had so often. And I think because it's an issue so often in the Downey community. And there's different like nuances to it, right? And we just learned some new information. And so I'm excited to talk about it. And
okay.
So I hope we present it correctly.
Right. And we want to be fair because we both enjoy some of the things that they do.
Absolutely.
You know, Dr. Brosmer and I were on the city council when we found a loophole to finally make it. We took money from the Arts and Public Spaces in 2012 when it set that up in 2013 to basically to fund the first 2 years of their location there, and then have them take off and run it from there. Yeah. And so that was the original premise. And the council last week gave us a breakdown on that.
Right.
So why are we're at today?
So it's the same old issue. So the gallery needs funding to pay the rent, basically. And that's what they're asking the city for. Actually, let me clarify, they're asking the city for more money to also pay for some of the operational costs and the staffing costs. So what was interesting, though, is since the gallery opened, since its inception, the city has contributed $375,838. Yep. A lot of money. So $375,000 over the past 10 years or so. The city has contributed a lot of money, and the issue is that wasn't the original plan. Right. Like you said, right? It was supposed to be, you know, here's some seed money to help you grow it, and then for whatever reason, that funding hasn't really come through on the part of Stay, right? And so we're having these issues, these discussions on a constant, you know, every 1 or 2 years that's happening, right? And that's why we're here. Is that the city council decided last week to fund the gallery for 1 more year.
So to bring it back to the council.
To bring it back, you're right.
Possibility of funding it for 1 more year with certain stipulations.
You're right. You're correct.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah.
And so basically what the city wants to see, they want to see better fundraising efforts from the gallery, from the operators of the gallery.
I was impressed with Councilman Sosa and Mayor Frometa on some of the questions that they asked. Some of the things were kind of staggering. When they asked them how much do you fundraise on their $5,000 to $15,000 a year. Wow, your rent is $24,000 a year, and you don't even fundraise for that. So, and then when they asked them how much you get paid, they said $125 an hour, and the number 2 person $100 an hour. And then when they were questioned on that, they, you know, because that's what they charge on their for-profit side, because there's a for-profit one there. It's got 10 employees. So that it was just some things that came out that like, wow, you know, shouldn't you be fundraising or at least have a fundraising person? I know they go after grants and so forth and things, but yeah, it's like, you know, it seems like they're trying to make the city feel guilty if they don't do this, but that wasn't the intent. It wasn't to be sustained forever. Right. And now all the letters and all the people that they came by, I mean, I'm sure they've done good. I'm glad they've done good. But it's from everybody that they've ever done good for is writing, oh, of course you have to support them. Well, at what point is not part of the deal?
And I think, you know, it's a hard conversation to have, right? Because we all like the staff.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
like the
absolutely.
leadership,
Yeah.
and we don't want to see it go away.
Yeah.
Is my opinion. This conversation should have happened, 6 years ago, where you have an honest conversation and you say, we need the city's financing in order to make it, right? But I feel like the city's kind of been strung along the past
Right,
10 years,
right.
and that's the frustrating part.
Right. So look, we funded it for the first 2 years, okay? And like I said, I was a downtown subcommittee with Roger Brosmer, and we did this, brought to the council, and the council, great idea to take out the public arts funds, okay? So we did that. It was going to be $48,000, $24,000 a year for 2 years, okay? So that's going to be it. So after 2 years, I will never forget this. I got a stock 3-ring binder this much with all these letters from everybody that ever, oh, they're so great, city, you have to do it again, and so great, and the whole thing. So they came to the city council, a lot of pressure on us politically, because, from everybody that we knew, including the school district, which funds some of their other stuff, which probably should be funding them, period. So anyways, we get that, and then they come and make a presentation. I'll never forget Mr. Flores says, well, if we need it for 2 more years. And if we ever have to come back here again, we failed, and we should never have to come back here.
We're doing something wrong.
We're doing something wrong. We should never, ever have to come back here. Yeah. So we're like begrudgingly like, okay, we're going to do it for these 2 more years. Here's your direction. Get going. This is it. So, of course, after 2 more years, then I was off the council, and so was Dr. Brosmer. And then everybody politically, the same thing. They just kept doing that 2 years. I remember one time when former Mayor Rodriguez kind of met with them and met with Aldo and, the staff. And it's like, okay, well, let's run this like a business. Show us, you got to give us your paperwork every quarter. Show us how you're raising money, how you're going to sustain yourself, blah, blah, blah. We'll work on this for a couple of years and so forth. And again, the same thing. Mr. Rodriguez, leaves the council, and here we are. So it's been 11 years now, 2012. So 11 years, and now here we are again, the same thing. So it's just at one point, and then last night, again, one of the things that came out where not only, thank goodness for the questioning by the council, how much they get paid, but also the thought process is they feel like now this operating agreement, they're entitled to it. It came across very much entitlement, and they don't do fundraising. I mean, they $5,000 to $15,000. They say, oh, they work for grants. Well, where do those grants come in? I think that there's a blurred line that I'm not quite sure with a profit for nonprofit, because if it's the nonprofit and you're looking to pay, just the rent, how are you doing that? And why aren't you raising more money? Because the city pays the rent. The $5,000 to $15,000 a year doesn't pay your $125 an hour, and it doesn't pay for programming. So I'm missing something.
Right.
There's another element there.
Right.
So that's why it's kind of a little frustrating.
And you're right. And I think, look, I don't have an issue with the city funding cultural programming, the arts. I think it's a great investment, right? But I get the sense that the city council is frustrated with what they perceive as like a lack of urgency from state, right? I feel like they want state to focus more on fundraising and making more of a concerted effort to raise money outside of just city funds, of the city handouts.
Right.
Right.
And you know what? The thing that gets me too is the made-up history that some of the people that came last week and this week, blaming the city for the demise of the Downey Museum of Art when they used to be over at Furman Park. Okay, I was on the council. I saw it. We met with them a million times. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. They didn't even come close to it. So the city wanted to, tried to. I was in the meetings with a couple other council members and so forth. And so finally, the Downey Museum of Art, they closed. So now we have this building. We didn't take the building away from it. We had to rehab the building to do it. The city did all that. So then we wanted to give another space for the Downey Museum. There was some art that was very valuable. We stored it at the Downey Theater. We wanted to display it at City Hall. They said, no, it's too much work for us. We wanted to display it at the Downey Theater and so forth. So finally, and we had several meetings. at City Hall with some of these same people saying, how can we save this? How can we do this? The city worked with the Downey Museum of Art. And finally, the Downey Museum of Art says, our board is so divided. Some want this on there. We're just going to call it quits. And they did. Yeah. And then they ended up giving the art to another theater, another gallery, and so forth. But please do not blame the city of Downey for the demise of the Downey Museum of Art. The board members of the Downey Museum of Art need to look at themselves and remember the history proponent. I can name you, half of them on there that were for this and the other half was that. I remember being so frustrated at City Hall and dealing with some of them, and they said, we don't understand. So that's one thing.
There was a lot of lack of transparency. I remember that.
Yeah. So that's BS. The other part is, the city didn't fund the Downey Opera or whatever.
The Civic Light Opera.
So, that's baloney. That's baloney. I was there. We basically asked for accountability. We needed to sell the tickets through this way and so forth. They were behind for years. We subsidized them and so forth. And then they finally says, okay, we don't want to be accountable to you, city, anymore. We're closing. So then the city's the bad guy on this. I can tell you that's not what happened. And I can tell you that's the truth on there. So the fact that the city of Downey doesn't want to fund stuff on there and closed all these things down, I want that narrative to go away because it's just not true. It's just not true. So now look at this, $375,000 when it was intended to be $48,000. It's intended to be a 2-year thing. We're working on 11 years, and they're still doing the same guilt trip, if you will, with the letters and the whole thing on there. How about if they put that much energy in raising money, fundraising it? I'm sorry, and I like the people. I love the location. I love the area. I love going in there. I've been in there a million times. It's just not fair to the city to put that burden on the city.
I would love to see some sort of effort made between maybe Stay and the board and the city of Downey. Maybe one final meeting where we all work together. Where they all work together towards creating a plan that's sustainable so they can stay here and continue
I totally
operating.
agree. And see, the sad part is, I thought they had that with former Mayor Rodriguez. He'll tell you the same thing. He did that. Okay, we did that. All of us have tried. Okay, how do we make it work? Okay, look, if you guys do this, if we do this, come up with the plan. Give us the plan, and then we'll blah, blah, blah. We'll monitor it. We'll work towards this. We'll give you whatever resources the city can do besides money and this and that and the whole thing. So I agree with you, and I think we should always try one last time. Right. I got a feeling a year from now and 2 years from now, we're going to have the same conversation. Yeah. Because everybody wants it to work. I do. But there's a disconnect somehow, which I'm not quite sure how. There's a sense of entitlement that bugs the heck out of me. That's the part, and that came across even last night. It's not the city's responsibility to do this. If you're in charge of that, help make it work, or at least come up with answers or questions. If you help me do this, I can do this. Right. If you help, not just pay the rent forever, or we should subsidize this. And somebody brought up last night, there was a developer that came in, I'm a Downey person, and I build in Downey, and 1% I resent, 1% of the money that goes to public arts, I'd rather it go to Stay Gallery. It's like, okay, then, you were being used. Okay, because there's a lot more of it. We put that in there for a reason. We have some of the artwork. We have some of the things on there. I mean, our beautiful mural here, Doodleishes on there, done by Don Lampkin. There's a lot more things that we should be doing in the arts. Stay is one of them, and making that work, but it's not all mutually exclusive. That should be the only thing.
No, and like we talked about, I think Stay Gallery adds so much to not just the downtown, but the city of Downey in general. It's one of the things that makes Downey unique, right? Because not every city is lucky enough to have its own art gallery, right? Where there's so many talented people from Downey who can actually have their own gallery and have their art exhibited. And I don't have an issue with a city investing money into culture. It doesn't necessarily have to come from the Art and Public Places Fund. I would be kind of curious how other cities fund their cultural programming. But I think there could be a better effort by Stay in how they present themselves and in their organization. Because I felt, watching the meeting, I felt like some of the, financial questions just weren't really answered to a level of satisfaction, right? I mean, they should be able to raise more than $5,000 to $15,000.
It's kind of, they weren't prepared for that, and since the last time you did it, you would have been prepared even better. It's like going on Shark Tank, knowing they're going to ask you what's your cost of acquisition for a new customer, and knowing they're going to ask you that question, you better know what's your cost of goods and what's your landed cost. They should have known those things there, and to fundraise $5,000 to $15,000, we get, I don't know, but Eric, here's the thing: is the city. The city just spent $5 million on the Downey Theater, okay? And it's beautiful on there. And there's a lot of subsidized projects there. Maybe it's not as utilized as we want it to be. But by the way, it's used like 300 days of the year. We just don't know that. The schools use it a lot. There's a lot of other functions in there. So we have the beautiful theater that's subsidized. We have the Space Center that is subsidized, and that's educational and STEM and learning and so forth on there. I totally agree. I wish we could. First of all, I'm still bummed about them changing the name. When we first signed the contract, it was the Downey Art Vibe, and I always felt like it was a bait and switch. Like within a month, they changed it to Stay Gallery, which I don't know what the meaning is of it on there, but to me, it sounded like the Downey Art Vibe.
You like having Downey in the name.
Of course it is. If you're going to subsidize it, have it stay what? It's a Downey Art Vibe. That would be the perfect name. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
And it's always been that way. So I still have that bait and switch feel on there. So I got to get over that, and I understand it's only been 11 years.
But going back to the fundraising, I feel like a better effort could be made. And I don't remember if it was this episode or the last episode. We were talking about the groups that fundraise, right?
Yeah.
With the fireworks booths, or they do the symphony. I'm on the board, and we do galas.
Yeah.
There was I say we, but it was Pat Gill, who's a board member. She ran it. It was a Phantom of the Opera dinner, right?
Yeah.
And so you pay a ticket, and you go, you have a good time, and the symphony sells ads into their concert program.
Yeah.
You buy an ad in there. If Stay Gallery had a fundraising event and they called you and said, "Hey Mario, we're having a dinner right here, it's $50, $100, to a fundraiser," you would buy a ticket.
Of course.
I know you would buy a ticket.
Course.
You would go down there, have a great time, whatever,
absolutely.
have a drinks or whatever,
Absolutely.
You would do it. I know a lot of people would do it. I would do it too.
Right.
But it takes effort to do that kind of fundraising.
Right. And I think you have, we talked about things, and maybe that's not practical. We talked the fireworks stand. Okay. The reason we still have fireworks, because there's all these groups that raise $20,000 in 4 days. Okay, how else do you do that? So they put the pressure on, and you have that. You have the Warren Band, the Downey Band, you got the football boosters, you have the Little Leagues, you have all these different things. Hey, Downey Art Vibe, make 20 grand in 4 days. Now you maybe get on the list because there's only, I think, 16 of them that are approved. But last year we actually had less because somebody dropped out of it.
Yeah.
So if you have this many volunteers, you got to man it for 4 days. So maybe that's something. But there's 20 grand right there in front. That's more than they've done in the last 2 years almost combined.
Yeah.
So, and one thing, and just throwing out ideas, but you're absolutely right.
And, so I do want, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but a few weeks ago, I'm with the TLC Center. We're having our 5K in February.
Yeah.
We needed help designing an ad for the billboard, the freeway billboard, right? So the city gives us ad space on there.
Right.
And so that's beyond our capabilities.
Right.
We reached out to Gabe at Stay Gallery. He volunteered his time. Second year in a row that he volunteered his time. He designed it. He gave it to us. He's so talented. Everybody there is so talented. I don't want to see them go away.
Right.
I want to see them here because they're Downey people. This is their community.
Right.
This is their hometown. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Right.
And I don't want to see them leave. We need to find a long-term solution that fits everybody.
They got to come to the table, though. They just can't rely, city, you figure it out. They got to come up with the plan. They got to do that. The city will help. And I agree with you. We want them. And so forth. So, I've talked about, Gabe helped us. He'll claim that he, it was we worked on the logo together with Gabe over his shoulder. We took his computer, Brian Psyche, Roger Brosmer, and myself, and we came up with the Downey logo on there in about 3 or 4 hours.
The Discover Downey logo?
The D that you see
the
on
D.
the top on there.
Right.
Yeah, so, we came up with the different ideas on there. And the one thing is that came up last week's council meeting in the staff report, but they got paid $67,000 for that.
Yeah.
So, and they got the benefit of the $75,000 survey that had already been done before them for the other company on there. So we're very proud of that and very talented. But, coming up with that's something that is, that was important to us. And I'm glad that he was involved with it. He sent me some nasty texts right after that, it was all his work. And I'm like, we were there in the room and you wanted this and we came up with that. So I don't want to take away from his talent, but, we do need him. But step up, dude. You guys got to step up on there. And you didn't help yourself last night or last week on there with the $125 an hour. I know you make that for the for-profit, but the nonprofit shouldn't be anything near that.
Well, what's going to be interesting too, which we didn't really talk about, is Downey's 2 new council members. We don't know how they feel about this.
Right.
So I think it might have been a little bit premature to have this conversation. Maybe this is a conversation for the city to have.
But it was them that brought it up. That's the thing. It was the stay on there that brought it up on there. Well, they should have applied instead of the $24,000 for some arts classes on there. They should have asked for that just to stay open on the beginning, $100,000 funding.
Yeah,
because on there. So that's what I'm saying is all of a sudden they came up with that. So where did this come up with at this time? Has this been going on or not? There should have been that conversation a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the cart before the horse. The chicken or the egg, but we're in it now, they're in it now, and now somehow, hopefully we'll have to work it out. In my opinion, from what I heard last night, is that the city will probably fund it for at least a year, and then with putting conditions. But at least they have a year
to work it out, come up with a plan.
Yeah. Exactly the same thing was told to him 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and 12 years ago.
Yeah. But we'll see. We're moving forward.
I was surprised that there's 5, looking at the staff report, there was like 5 agreements on there. I was surprised there was that many that got changed. That's why I know that every couple of years there was a new agreement.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit tweaked on whether
because of the naming, whatever.
The naming or, who's supposed to do what or that kind of stuff. But anyway.
I want to ask you, changing topics, if that's okay with you. City Council related. City Council filed a restraining order against one of its gadflies, Armando Herman. If you don't know Armando, he's super vulgar, and he'll say very hateful, bigoted comments where it crosses the line into threats and becoming threats against staff or council members. So he's not at city council meetings anymore.
He's allowed to respond to write in, and they put it on the record that way. But you're right. On there, he's for years been this terrible gadfly on there. He uses the F word regularly, the MF word. He uses the N word. He calls women by the worst name you can call them. It's just terrible. Every other word sometimes is the F word or the N word. And when you have children or you have teachers there, or you have somebody getting an award, and he starts off with that, and he writes the big F word on his chest, and he writes it on the back. They're not televising it. If you look at a city council meeting, the public comment section, that's because of him.
Yeah.
Because that way he would wear a big F word or the Nazi thing on his hat. So because he knew exactly where the cameras were. So he's changed the way they do business. And I'm glad that he finally crossed the line. LA County also put the restraining order.
Yeah.
I've read the restraining order. And I'm just, to me, it's kind of about time. Yeah. He says, they're going to sue and the whole thing. And it's kind of like, go for it. Let's see what happens per se. But you can't keep going. You can't have one person holding a whole entire city hostage. And that's what was happening. So LA County took a bold stand, and the city of Downey and the new city attorney and with this council did the same thing.
It's a fine line, right? Because obscene language is
Protected.
Is
You're right.
protected.
Right.
It's now when you cross the line into threats
Right.
or threatening
Right.
behavior.
Well, also you can't. What's illegal also is to disrupt the public meeting. So while he can use his language during his 2 minutes or 3 minutes, he can't continue from the seat yell out those things, disrupting the meeting, the thought process,
Which he
or get
does.
up on it, which he does. So that part was always illegal. They just kind of tolerated it. He's been kicked out of City Hall, City Council meeting. I can't tell you how many times.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing. And Downey is taking back its city. You know, we had the recall, we have a new election, we got new council, and one of the main gadflies is finally, at least temporarily, hopefully permanently, is no longer there. So we're becoming the Downey of old that we all know and love. So let's go. Let's go. Our future looks bright, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
You're not as excited as I am.
No, I mean we'll see. I mean
Yeah.
we'll see. I great things are coming to Downey.
Yes.
I absolutely.
We hit a low plateau
We
that
did.
we've never had before.
We did.
And now-
I also want to, the reason I hesitate is I also want to see Downey progress. I want to see progress in Downey.
Right.
I don't want us to go back to when you say the old Downey, I feel I know what you mean.
I know what I'm with you.
You want people in City Hall who care about the community.
I want stability. I want
Yes.
character count. I want ethics,
Absolutely.
transparency.
while we're moving forward.
While we're moving forward,
Absolutely,
of course. And
Yes.
I think our new council people are going to fit in really good with the existing council, and I think they have some vision on there. And I think that all of them together, I'm excited. I'm excited
am
about
too.
the potential. So.
I am too.
All right. Well, listen, we'll be back next Friday. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for financial partners for sponsoring this and making this available. We welcome your thoughts on this. Send us emails. Send us your comments. We'd love to see what your thoughts and what where you're at, especially on that. Just don't call us names. You can call us names, but just do it privately. No. Anyways, so listen. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Talking Downey with Mario
And Eric.